Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Maryland has not been to a bowl game since 2016. But Mike Locksley is hoping that will change in year 3 in College Park. So again, guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, here to predict Maryland's schedule and record for this 2021 college football season. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and make sure to subscribe to our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the country. The links for that and all of our other offers down in the description below. So, Maryland. The last 2 years they've started relatively strong and then they have fizzled out. Mike Locksley is hoping that will change again in year 3, looking to get Maryland to their first bowl game since 2016. He has recruited extremely well. The talent is there, but can they get the job done? We take a look at their offense. 8 starters are back on that side of the ball, and that is obviously supposed to be the strength for the Terrapins. That is Mike Locksley's kind of mindset. He is an offensive-minded coach, and he's made a fantastic hire with Dan Enos now as their offensive coordinator. Taulia Tagovailoa, yes, the brother of Tua Tagovailoa, returns after throwing for over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, and just 7 interceptions. So a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, something they are hoping will improve in 2021. But the good thing is, for Taulia, his top 4 pass catchers are back. That includes Dante Demas Jr., 365 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. That includes Raheem Jarrett, one of the highly touted recruits that Mike Locksley landed in College Park. And this is an offense that averaged 409 yards per game last year, good for 3rd in the Big Ten. So again, the talent is there. The big play ability is there. The coach is absolutely there. Can they finally put it all together? Because while it is there, this team is still young. When you look at the defense, 6 starters are back, and that's the side of the ball that needs the most work for Maryland. They allowed 32 points per game last year. They allowed 230 rushing yards per game last year. They allowed 430 total yards per game last year. So the numbers were very, very poor. And if those don't improve, Maryland won't improve. The one thing the Terrapins do have going for them, though, is a very, very strong secondary. A secondary that allowed just 200 passing yards per game last year, like their offense, good enough for 3rd in the entire Big Ten. They're led by Nick Cross on that side of the ball, led by Nick Cross in that secondary. And I know for sure that I would not want to go up against this Terrapins back 7, really. Certainly their secondary, but just the back 7, period. That's what I know for sure. When you look at Maryland, guys, going into this season, the schedule looks manageable, at least early on. And that's one of those things. You have to worry about the eye test here. They have a tough game against West Virginia. They have that Big Ten game against Illinois, and then 2 winnable games against Howard and Kent State. It's after that where the schedule gets very difficult, where Maryland might just need to win a few just to get to the postseason. So let's break down their schedule. Opening up against West Virginia at home. This is going to be a very, very intriguing game, a very tough game, because I love this West Virginia team going into 2021. I love what Neil Brown is doing in Morgantown. I love the team he has coming back. 8 starters on offense with their star quarterback in Jarrett Dagey and star running back Letty Brown both coming back. Their defense returned 6 starters from a unit that was the #1 passing defense, not in the Big 12, but in the country. West Virginia had the best passing defense in the country last year, allowing just 159.6 passing yards per game. They were also 4th in the nation in total yards per game allowed, just allowing 291.4 yards per game. So this West Virginia defense, guys, is the real deal. This West Virginia defense is legit. The offense sputters at time, but the talent is there to take a major step forward in 2021. So to me, this is a battle between Maryland with Tagovailoa and his pass catchers against West Virginia's secondary. That's what it's truly going to come down to. And I'm going to go ahead and just stick with the trend that we have seen in the last, now I would say 3 years under Mike Locksley, and say that Maryland gets the job done against the Mountaineers in week 1. couple of years ago, Maryland shocked everybody. That quick 2-0 start where they looked like one of the best offenses in the country. Last year, bad showing against Northwestern, but bounced back against Minnesota and annihilated Penn State before they fizzled out. I think they start strong here again, and they beat West Virginia. I think they beat Howard. They then play Illinois in their first Big Ten game of the year at Illinois on a Friday night. Illinois bringing in a brand new head coach in Brett Bielema. I think it's one of the more underrated hires of this last offseason. Bielema doing a phenomenal job at Wisconsin when he was there in the Big Ten. So he knows the conference well, he knows the region well, and now he even has NFL experience that he's now bringing in to Champaign. The problem with Illinois is the fact that they allowed 34.9 points per game last year and 467.2 yards per game last year. That was last in the conference. I think Maryland goes into Champaign and dominates the Fighting Illini, a team that, yes, returns 15 starters, but didn't matter last year. It's not going to matter this year either. They then beat Kent State, I believe. I believe they beat Kent State, but they have to be aware of Dustin Crum, the dangerous dual-threat quarterback for the Golden Flashes. So while that game could be close, especially if Maryland's defense isn't up to par and still struggling a little bit, it could be close, but I think they get the job done. And that means Maryland's going to be 4-0 going into the bulk of conference play. Maybe the Terrapins are ranked nationally. Maybe they're not, but they're 4-0. So their strong start still remains intact for Mike Locksley. 3 years in a row, they would have a very strong start. It's just a matter of how do they do on the rest of the year. How do they do in the final 8 games of the year? Well, they first off start against Iowa. Friday night matchup at home against Kirk Ferentz and the Hawkeyes. An Iowa team that finished 2020 on a 6-game winning streak. A team that returns Spencer Petras at quarterback, a team that returns Tyler Goodson at running back, and a defense that was top 10 nationally in scoring, rushing, and total defense. Iowa is going to be a legitimate threat in the Big Ten West this year. They are carrying a lot of momentum into 2021. And I don't know if, while we talk about Maryland's offense and how strong as they are, I don't know if they have what it takes to beat Iowa, even though the game is in College Park. Because while Iowa had a great rushing defense last year, their passing defense can be maybe just as good this year as they have one of the better secondaries in the conference. All their starters return in that secondary. I feel very confident in Iowa this year, and I think they do just enough defensively to win this game on the road, and Maryland drops their first game of the season. They then travel to Ohio State. Chalk that up as a loss. Again, no disrespect. We've seen Maryland a couple years ago. We saw them give Ohio State a major challenge, major threat, major scare. But that was in College Park. That was at Maryland. They're not going to be able to go into Columbus. I don't know if anybody will be able to defeat the Buckeyes, at least in the regular season. Yes, they're dealing with quarterback changes. We believe it will be C.J. Stroud that gets the nod. Yes, their secondary was not great. That's the only thing that can maybe make a difference here, is the fact that Ohio State's secondary might be a little shaky, and they're going up against a solid passing offense in Maryland. But if you want to play devil's advocate, Maryland allowed 230 rushing yards per game last year. If their rushing defense isn't up to par, Master Teague for Ohio State will run all over them. Maryland drops their second straight game at Ohio State. They then get their bye week. They go to Minnesota. If you remember last year, they beat Minnesota 45-44. They came all the way back against the Golden Gophers in a shocker. It was in overtime, we should add. No one thought that, first off, Maryland was going to win that game because Minnesota had higher expectations that early on in the year. But when Minnesota jumped out to a huge lead, no one thought Maryland would be able to come back and win that game, and they did. So credit to Mike Locksley and the Terrapins for getting the job done. So first off, let's look at this. Minnesota will have revenge on their mind at home. Keep that in mind. Minnesota is also going to bounce back this year. Tanner Morgan is back, Chris Ottman-Bell is back, Mohamed Ibrahim is back, and they return 6 starters on the defensive side of the ball. Minnesota allowed just 208.7 passing yards per game last year. That was good for 36 in the entire country. So the Golden Gophers secondary is relatively strong. And again, we know that Maryland's strength and what they want to do is throw the ball. If they are unsuccessful and are not able to throw the ball against Minnesota, they will not win this game. Despite getting a week of rest, we think they drop their third straight at Minnesota. PJ Fleck will have his team back in contention in the West and certainly will be back in a bowl game by season's end. Maryland then gets a very difficult last 5 games. Indiana, Penn State, Michigan, all the big ones there. But Maryland gets all 3 of them at home, and that's intriguing to me. So they have an opportunity to make a few statements. Indiana, Penn State, Michigan, all coming to College Park. We'll start with the Indiana game. Look, a team that they lost to 27-11 last year, a game where Michael Penix actually tore his ACL and was out for the remainder of the year. So obviously emotions will be very high for the Hoosiers. Michael Penix will certainly want to come back and redeem himself. And this is one of those battles again where Indiana's secondary is going to be tested against Taulia Tagovailoa and his Maryland passing attack. One of those games where Indiana's defense, if they're not up to par, although we think they will be, could end up slipping up and losing this game. Not to mention that Indiana will be coming off the game against Ohio State. Whether they win that game or lose that game, they could be off of a Ohio State hangover. High off a win, low after a loss. Indiana cannot afford to overlook this game, and we don't think they will. We think Tom Allen will have his team ready to go for this game. I don't think Tom Allen believes in hangovers. He believes in partying, but he doesn't believe in hangovers. Indiana gets the win in College Park, and the same can be said for Penn State. And I actually feel better about saying that Penn State will beat Maryland than Indiana will beat Maryland. Because last year, Penn State fell to the Terrapins 35-19 in Happy Valley. An unbelievable game for Tagovailoa in that one. But Penn State was just completely out of it early in 2020. Started 0-5 before waking up and winning their final 4 games. So they enter this year on a 4-game winning streak. They return 14 starters. Their offense is going to be a lot better. Their defense is going to be a lot better. 7 returning starters on that side of the ball from a unit that, again, while they were 4-5, ranked in the top 5 in the Big Ten in multiple categories. While this game is at Maryland, I don't see any way that they win this game. Because I think James Franklin's going to go out there and try to prove a point. Because that was a major upset, a major shock to see Maryland defeat the Nittany Lions. It's not going to happen 2 years in a row for a Penn State team that will bounce back. And they'll bounce back in a big way. So they have lost now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight games after starting the season 4-0. Kind of the inverse of what Penn State did last year. They have 3 games left, and we'll start with the one at Michigan State. I'll say that I think this game would be better for the Terrapins if it were at Maryland, if it were in College Park. Because while Michigan State is certainly going to be nothing special, they are going to improve in year 2 under Mel Tucker. And that starts with their transfer quarterback in Anthony Russo, who they landed from Temple. Michigan State's offense has the chance to improve drastically, significantly. They only averaged 18 points per game last year. They can improve that by 10 points per game in 2021. That's how good I think they can be with Russo, who's a solid quarterback, and all those wide receivers coming back. It's the defense that's the major issue. But outside of the points per game, Michigan State allowed 35.1 points per game last year. The rest of the defense was middle of the pack in the Big Ten. This game is in East Lansing. Just like the Terrapins, Michigan State could be fighting for their spot in a bowl game. They're not going to be great, but every win's going to count. With home field advantage, I like the Spartans. That now means that Maryland has to win their final 2 to get to a bowl game. Well, it starts with Michigan. I don't think they can defeat the Wolverines. Michigan might have some offensive issues themselves. Cade McNamara, J.J. McCarthy, Alan Bowman from Texas Tech. Whoever's starting at quarterback is going to have a lot of responsibility because outside of that, there's not much offensive talent. Really has there ever been under Jim Harbaugh. But the thing that Michigan always does well under Harbaugh, and what they'll do very well this year, is play defense. 9 starters back on that side of the ball for Michigan, a team that I think is going to start very, very strong before they have a very difficult final stretch of the year. The only thing that goes for Maryland in this game is the fact that Michigan could overlook them in preparation for Ohio State the very next week. But I think Jim Harbaugh is starting to learn his lesson a little bit. He cannot afford to slip up to many teams, let alone Maryland, who at this point in the year will be well below them and a huge underdog to the Wolverines. Michigan gets the job done. Maryland will not be going bowling, unfortunately. They close out the year with a road game at Rutgers, and we believe they fall to the Scarlet Knights as well. And while many will frown upon that and they'll disagree with that, listen to the logic here. Last year, Rutgers came on the road to Maryland and beat the Terrapins 27-24 in overtime. Beat them by 3 in overtime. You can make the argument that Maryland is improving. The same goes for Rutgers. Everybody is back on offense for the Scarlet Knights. 8 starters are back on defense. They could be fighting for a bowl berth in the final week of the season. Greg Schiano will have them in position to do so. They're going to improve drastically. in Piscataway. They won last year. They're better than they were last year. I like Rutgers in this game, and I don't see how you can pick Maryland. It might be close, very close like last year, but I like Greg Schiano on senior night in New Jersey to get the job done for his Scarlet Knights. And again, that brings us to our final, where Maryland goes 4-8. For the third straight year, the Terrapins will start relatively strong. This will obviously be their best start under Mike Locksley, and they will finish poorly. And when you look at their schedule, guys, I think the 4-0, I feel confident about that. After that, who do they beat? Michigan State, maybe. Rutgers, maybe. Those are two games where Maryland could easily be favored. But I would be surprised to see them favored in any other game. Not Iowa, not Ohio State, not Minnesota on the road. Indiana, Penn State, and Michigan. None of those are games, despite a lot of those being at home, none of those are games where I say Maryland should be favored or just slight underdogs. They might be significant underdogs. They're still a ways away under Mike Locksley. He's recruiting well. The talent is getting there. They just had to find a way to finally develop that talent. This is still a young team, but Maryland, again, falls short with a disappointing 4-8 season in 2021. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description. Sign up for those expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. I can promise you do not want to miss out on that. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.